Hey there, and welcome. Have you ever been in that spot where you're talking about a country, but the name just feels weird coming out of your mouth in English? Trust me, you are not alone, and you are in exactly the right place. In this explainer, we are going to build up your confidence with a complete guide to the world's geography, how to pronounce the names correctly, and even how to talk about where people are from. So let's get into it. You know, this quote from Emma over at English really just hits the nail on the head. It gets right to the core of the problem, doesn't it? You know your country's name, of course you do. But then you hear a native English speaker say it, and it sounds like a totally different word. It's such a common experience for language learners, and it's a hurdle we are absolutely going to help you clear today. So here's how we're going to break it all down. We've got a really clear step-by-step plan. First, we'll get a handle on just how big this topic is, the whole world in English. Then we'll start simple, with a map, and add on layers like capitals and nationalities. After that, we are going to zero in on mastering pronunciation. And to wrap it all up, I'm going to give you a complete toolkit so you can keep this journey going. All right, let's dive into our first section, the world in English. You know, when you first decide I'm going to learn the names of all the countries, it is so easy to feel completely overwhelmed. I mean, it's a big world out there. But just how big are we talking? Well, if you look at a source like the CIA's World Factbook, they list 258 distinct world entities. Now, that's not just independent countries, it also includes territories and other special areas. But still, seeing that number, 258, it really puts the challenge into perspective, right? That is a lot to take in.
Yeah, a number like that can feel totally paralyzing. If you've got this list of over 200 names, where on earth do you even start? Well, the answer is definitely not to just open an atlas and start with the letter A. The real solution is to be smart about it, to be strategic. And that leads us perfectly into our first big practical step. Start with the map. The absolute key here, and this is based on some great guidance from the international academic competitions, is to focus on the most famous, the most frequently mentioned countries first. Don't even think about trying to learn everything all at once. So this is really the secret sauce to our strategy. We want to learn the names that you're actually going to hear, the ones you'll use in everyday conversations, see in the news, or hear in movies. By focusing on these high-frequency countries, you're building a super strong, practical foundation that you can start using immediately. Okay, so let's check out our starter pack of countries, and we'll begin in the Americas. Let's take our time here. First up, the USA, the United States of America, with its capital in Washington, D.C. Then we head south to its neighbor, Mexico, with that huge, incredible capital, Mexico City. From there, we go way down to the largest country in South America, Brazil, and its capital is the very modern, planned city of Brasilia. Now let's head back north to the vast country of Canada. A lot of people think Toronto is the capital, but it's actually Ottawa. Next up on our tour is the passionate country of Argentina, with its beautiful capital, Buenos Aires. Then we move over to the west coast, to the long, skinny country of Chile, and its capital, Santiago, which is beautifully tucked into a valley right by the Andes Mountains. Then there's Colombia, with its very high-altitude capital, Bogotá. After that, we have Peru, famous for Machu Picchu, with its capital, Lima. And finally, for this part of our list, the island nation of Cuba and its historic capital city, Havana. Now let's take a jump across the Atlantic Ocean, over to Europe, a continent just packed with so much history. We'll kick things off with the United Kingdom and its world-famous capital, London. Then, right next door, of course, is France and its iconic capital, Paris, the City of Light. Next is the powerhouse of Europe, Germany, with its incredibly historic and cultural capital, Berlin. Heading south, we've got sunny Spain and its capital, Madrid, which sits right in the very center of the country. And then we have the home of ancient empires, Italy, and its eternal city, the capital, Rome. Moving eastward, we have the massive country of Russia, which actually spans 2 continents with its powerful capital, Moscow. Let's to south from there to the cradle of Western civilization, Greece, and its ancient capital, Athens. Then let's head way up north to Sweden and its stunning capital, Stockholm, which is actually spread out over 14 different islands. Then we'll pop over to the Emerald Isle, Ireland, with its famously friendly capital, Dublin. And rounding out our European list, we have Poland, a country with such a resilient history, and its capital, Warsaw, a city that was almost completely rebuilt after the Second World War. Okay, and let's finish up our essential list with some key countries from Africa, Asia, and Oceania. First, the global powerhouse of China, with its capital in Beijing. Next is the incredibly vibrant nation of India, with its capital, New Delhi. Then we have the unique culture of Japan and its huge futuristic capital, Tokyo, which is actually the most populated city in the whole world. Its neighbor, South Korea, has its dynamic capital in Seoul. Now let's head over to Africa, to the ancient land of Egypt, home of the pyramids, and its capital, Cairo, a massive city right on the Nile River. Then, at the very southern tip of the continent is South Africa, a nation which, fun fact, actually has 3 capitals. We've listed the legislative capital here, which is Cape Town. Now let's go way down under to Australia. Here's another tricky one. The capital isn't Sydney, it's actually a purpose-built city called Canberra. And its neighbor, New Zealand, famous for those breathtaking landscapes, has its capital in Wellington. And finally, let's look at 2 countries that bridge continents. We have Turkey with its capital Ankara, and Iran with its sprawling capital Tehran.
Phew, okay. So, once you feel comfortable with that core list of countries, it is time to add the next layer. Knowing a country's name is a fantastic start, but the conversation really opens up when you can also talk about its people and its capital city. Now, the best thing about learning nationalities is that you don't have to memorize every single one from scratch. Check this out. As this chart from Duolingo shows, a ton of them follow these really predictable patterns. You see this common "ian" suffix for countries like Brazil and Italy? That gives us Brazilian and Italian. Or the "an" ending for Germany, which gives us German. Then you've got the "is" suffix for places like China and Japan, making Chinese and Japanese. And then another common one is "ish," like for Spain, which gives us Spanish. Recognizing these patterns is like a little cheat code. It's a huge shortcut for building your vocabulary fast. So this slide just breaks down a few simple rules for actually using these words. First, and this is super important, nationalities are always capitalized in English. Always. Now, for plurals, you can often just add an S, like saying 2 Brazilians. But for words that end in "es, like Chinese, you wouldn't say Chineses, you'd say 2 Chinese people. And here is my favorite tip, a fantastic little trip. If you are ever in doubt, just say a person from, and then the country. A person from Italy. It's simple, it's always correct, and it keeps the conversation moving. No stress. All right, now for the part that I know can feel like the final boss battle for a lot of learners. Sounding it out. Mastering English pronunciation can feel so tricky, but I promise you, there is one core concept that unlocks almost everything.
And that one magic concept is syllable stress. This really is the secret ingredient. It's not just about making the right sounds, it's about which sound you emphasize. As English explains, the stressed vowel is the strongest one in the word. You say it a little longer, a little louder, and your pitch goes up a bit. When you find the stress, you find the natural music of the word. For example, listen to the difference between Australia and Australia. That tiny shift in emphasis, it makes all the difference in the world.
So here are a few pro tips to help you practice this. First up, when you hear a new country name, actively listen for that one vowel that sounds the strongest. Boom, that's your stress syllable. Also, start to notice how English borrows and adapts sounds. For example, a native Spanish speaker might say Argentina with a hard G sound, but in English that sounds softened into a J, Argentina. And finally, please remember this. Pronunciation isn't one single rigid thing. An Australian, a British person, and a Canadian might all say a country's name a little differently, and that's totally okay. The real goal here is just clear communication, not some single perfect accent.
Okay, we are on the home stretch. Let's talk about your geography toolkit. We've built a really clear method, and now I want to make sure you have all the resources you need to keep building your knowledge and your confidence. So let's just quickly recap this powerful 3-step learning method we've put together. 1, you start with the map. You begin with that manageable list of famous countries so you don't get overwhelmed. 2, you add the layers. You connect those countries to their capitals, and you learn the common patterns for nationalities. And 3, you sound it out. You practice your pronunciation by focusing on finding that all-important syllable stress. Your first tool in the toolkit should be a structured study guide. Resources like this one from the International Academic Competitions are just fantastic because they've already done the hard work of prioritizing for you. They give you these Level 1, Level 2, and Level 3 lists of countries so you can learn in a way that's logical, effective, and builds on itself. Next up, you've got to leverage technology. Language learning apps like Duolingo are perfect for adding those layers we talked about. They don't just flash a word at you. They help you practice using the vocabulary for countries and nationalities in full sentences, which is what really helps that information stick in your brain. And for those moments when your curiosity is sparked and you just have to know more, there are amazing data hubs out there. The CIA's World Factbook is an absolutely incredible resource. Once you've mastered a country's name, you can dive in and learn about its geography, its people, its government, its economy. Seriously, almost anything you could possibly want to know is right there.
So there you have it. We've covered the strategy, the layers of knowledge, the pronunciation, and the tools. You have everything you need to start this journey. The only question left is the really fun one. Where are you going to start? Which corner of our amazing world are you going to choose to explore and master first?